My name is Brandon Childs, originally from Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm the head lacrosse coach at York College, Pennsylvania.
All right, so Coach Childs, let's start by just talking about what led you to York College. If you can maybe take us back to your college experience, then once you graduated, and then leading up to now being the coach here at York.
Yeah, well, I mean, what led me here, I guess, ultimately was coming out of high school. I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to go down and play lacrosse for 4 years at Lynchburg College in Virginia, and got a degree in sports management, and knew pretty early on that I wanted to get into coaching. As a college kid, in my sports management degree, I was able to get some internships with lacrosse camps, and so I would travel the summer and work the different recruiting camps, Top 205, Top Star Lacrosse Camp, and I met a lot of great people in the game, and I just knew I wanted to be one of those people, and so I stayed and got my master's degree as a graduate assistant, and then that took me to Dickinson College, where I worked for Dave Webster for 3 years before becoming the head coach at Eastern University. And then started to build something at Eastern, and this opportunity here at York came to be, and it just seemed like the perfect opportunity for me and my family to really be able to find a place to be able to call home, and been here for 8 years.
What are some things that you learned during your time at Eastern and also working under some great men as a college coach that you now bring to your program at York today?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned so many good things. As an assistant coach, I mean, I think I got to work with two of the best in Division III, Steve Kudelka down at Lynchburg and Dave Webster at Dickinson, and they're both great coaches that have great programs, and I think they do it differently, and I think the one thing that I learned from each of them was you have to be you, and your strengths become your team's strengths, and as a recruiter, as a game planner, and running your program, and I learned that from both of them. And then when I got to Eastern, I had my first opportunity to be me, and I think it was the perfect school with the perfect mission to learn how to really be you and kind of do it unapologetically. And I've tried to bring that here. And if I think for right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm pretty confident that when I'm leading the men here at York, I'm doing it, as me, and sometimes maybe for worse.
Can you talk a little bit about the core values of your existing team? What are some of them? Why do you have them? And how did they kind of come to fruition to being important to you?
Yeah, so we have 3 core beliefs here, and this didn't just happen right when I got here. It's evolved. I spent last winter just studying culture, from reading books to going and meeting with people, traveling the country to really learn what this big word culture that doesn't seem to have a definition truly is. And I kind of stumbled upon the power of 3. I really wanted to have 4, and it was wrestling with it over the winter to come up with our 3 core beliefs, which is to work hard, serve others, and then to be humble. Working really hard at something is just the prerequisite to success. Being selfless, I think, is the prerequisite to being a great team. And then continuously pursuing, is the root of humble to me. I don't think I think humility gets kind of misinterpreted as modest. I think they're different things. I think you can kind of be cocky but humble at the same time. Like Kobe Bryant comes to mind. I don't think Kobe Bryant is necessarily modest, but his humility to try to get better certainly exists, and that's something that we preach to our team, is this idea that it doesn't matter what our current state is so long as that we have the desire to get better. And so those 3 things became our core belief, and then we try to tag 3 action items to each of those core beliefs that our guys quite literally could make a checklist each day, that I have to do 3 things today to show my humility to my teammates. I have to do 3 things today to serve my teammates, and I need to do 3 things today to work harder than I did yesterday. And then if you do that, your culture is something that's tangible. It is something that you can set out each day to do, as opposed to just, something on the back of a t-shirt. And that's what we've tried really hard over the last, 14, 16 months to create here. And it's something that, you could ask any of our players today what our 3 core beliefs are, and unanimously 44 out of 44 would be able to exercise it for you.
What's maybe one success story of your time coaching, whether it be as an assistant, maybe at Eastern, or even currently here today at York, of someone that really meets those core values during their entire time in existence, or maybe someone who maybe developed into becoming great at believing in what your program's about and becoming that person?
Oh man, I have so many stories of guys that have embodied kind of the team's culture, and then it being life-changing. The one that came to mind as you asked the question, when I was the head coach at Eastern, just to try to like set some sort of tone, and I don't know, maybe this was silly, but I had decided to have my first team meeting at 6 a.m. And kind of to scare away the guys that maybe, were playing recreationally. And we had a walk-on. I got to the meeting. It was like my first team meeting as a head coach, so probably didn't sleep. I was all excited. And I probably got to the meeting at 5 a.m. and the building we were having the meeting was locked, and there was a walk-on waiting, just sitting on the steps of the building to go at 5 in the morning. And so I just decided right then and there that this kid was going to make our team. He was a defender, and truth be told, not a very good defender. We kept him. Later that year, we only had one goalie on the team. The team had 24 kids, one goalie, and the goalie broke his thumb. And so we needed a goalie, and then this walk-on stepped up and became the goalie. And he's now the head lacrosse coach at a college in Michigan. And that's probably the story I think about. We gave him the nickname Shaq. I've never called him anything other than Shaq. I've never heard anybody else ever call him anything other than Shaq. And he's just that selfless. I mean, that's the word, serving others. He just served everybody. And when it came to, we needed a goalie, I don't know, I wouldn't do it. There's no way I would sign up to be the goalie if I was good at it, let alone had never played it. And so he's the guy that comes to mind, and he's still involved in the game and serving the game as a head coach, which that morning when I walked up to that team meeting and he was sitting on those steps, I would have never in a million years believed that he was going to be a college lacrosse coach.
So how do you find and what do you look for in a recruit as you look to find players that match what your program's about off the field, as well as the talent of the kids you're looking for on the field?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing I would tell you is when we go to recruiting events, I shouldn't say we don't, but we try our hardest not to switch fields at halftime. I think sometimes when coaches go to events, they want to see as many kids as possible. And so, I mean, you've been there, you've seen it. Like, everybody's moving from field to field. I got to see this kid at this time. And I feel like when you do that, you miss what you're really looking for. And so it's halftime and it's 100 degrees and the second goalie's going in. I make a note of who the kid is that warms up that second goalie. Your team's losing. It's what seems to be a meaningless game and you're down by 7. And I'm the only coach on the sideline. I want to see what's happening in those moments. And so we try to watch the game. I think you can tell so much about a kid and how he was raised by watching him play and how he plays, not watching him score goals or watching him take the ball away, but watching his body language and watching not, I guess, how he's playing the game, not what he's doing within the game. And so we take a lot of notes on things that don't necessarily have to do with, athleticism or footwork or skill, but more what kind of teammate they're going to end up being. And we don't necessarily recruit the 40 best players because the 40 best players don't always win. We're recruiting a team. We're not recruiting like an all-star team. And so we try to kind of put the puzzle pieces together, and we go out and looking at recruiting at events. I think the best way to reveal someone's character and who they're going to be in the winter months of your program can be seen in some of those summer tournaments when things aren't necessarily going their way. And so I guess that would be my answer.
Cool. And now for your kids on campus currently who play for you, what makes their student-athlete experience kind of unique, and what is it kind of like for your college lacrosse player today?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that's interesting is like fun, we try to make playing lacrosse at York pretty fun. But the problem is fun has like different definitions. To some people, doing nothing but transition and playing fast and a little reckless can be fun. And I don't know that that's our style of play, so maybe you wouldn't, if you came out and watched our practice, if your definition of fun is like fast and trying to skip the ball when a skip's not there, I don't know that you'd think our practice was fun. If your definition of fun is like making kind of the right play and then 2 passes later results in the goal and everybody's all amped up and high-fiving the guy that made the right play, not the guy that scored the goal, then you might find our practices to be pretty fun, And so our definition of fun is kind of that nasty, tough, gritty process towards the end result. I mean, there's kids at York shoot the ball behind the back and score, and kids at York throw skip passes. So those things happen, and we do drills in practice that I think some kids would decide is a little bit more fun than the next drill. But in the big picture, that like all-encompassing picture, it's just kind of this like relentless pursuit of just doing the play that's required for that moment. And that's kind of our definition of fun. And so we have to recruit that to make sure that that they're not misled in the process. Because we do use the word fun, but we have to define it for them because it could be defined a little differently here.
And how's kind of like the leadership structure set up with your team? How do you select the person who you might classify as the one or few leaders that lead your program? And then do you maybe have a story of someone that stands out to you that did a great job in your experience leading the program the way you want it to be led?
Yeah, so what I would say is we're a little bit different in terms of our leadership structure. Here at York, we have one captain, we have one singular captain. It's something I believe in. And the reason I kind of came to this is because I always challenge people when they ask me about it is to think about the best team you were ever on and then tell me who the captains were. And generally they can respond with one kid. Oh, it was so-and-so. And I'm like, well, was he the only captain? Like, no, there was probably 3 or 4, but I don't remember the other ones. And I feel like on those best teams, there's always that one guy. And so why not just empower that and create that from the get-go? And so we have a singular captain here. The way that our team comes to it is at the end of our fall season, every player meets with me individually. We do a whole bunch of things from job placement to their grades to their game. But one of the things we talk about is who they want the one captain to be. It's not a vote. They're not writing the name down anonymously. It's a conversation. And so if they pick the kid's name, I can then say, okay, well, tell me why. And then I can say, okay, well, if that kid wasn't an option, who would the next pick be? And I can really start to figure out what their train of thought is to make sure that they're picking, they have an idea of what the captain needs to be. Because as a high school kid, the captain's the kid who delegates who carries the balls and then who goes out and does the coin toss. Well, here our captain is the one that serves everybody else. And so our captain carries the water out. Our captain takes our back. Today in this meeting, our captain was lifting, so our captain is the number one server of everybody else. And so it isn't like this thing that, in our culture, it is desired. You want to be the one, but society, is it really desired to be the one that has to serve everybody else? And so we want to make sure when our kids are voting for who our singular captain is going to be, they have a really good indication of what they're actually appointing this guy to.
Is it always your best player?
No, it isn't always our best player. In 2017, it was a kid who didn't play. He was only on our man down unit. And he was only on our man down unit because I had to have my captain have ownership over something on Saturdays. I don't know that he was even good enough to be on the man down unit.
How did you serve the rest of your team not on game day?
I think serving him on game day is pretty easy. So it's the way you serve your team is not on game day. And so for him, it was pretty easy. So on game day, it's pretty easy because there's ground balls that need to be gotten, there's clears that need to be made, there's unselfish plays, little plays that make big results that are going to inevitably happen. So it's easier to be the singular captain if you're one of the best players. Last year, and that's the example I would use, is our singular captain was our best player. But what made him our best player was he was a midfielder who played defense and took wings of faceoffs and played offense. And any coach in the country would tell you that what made him great was his short stick defense. And his shooting percentage was 41% on the offensive end. And so, but he became a great player because the first 3 years he was here, when he wasn't an All-American, he spent so much time trying to serve other people and, just sticking to those core, beliefs we talked about. So he worked really hard and he served others and he remained kind of humble as he got better at it. And lo and behold, he becomes the singular captain as a senior. That's a first team All-American.
So you've seen some great successes, as you were leading this program, how many conference championships have you guys won?
Just won one.
Just one?
Yeah.
Okay. And you made the NCAA playoffs how many times?
I think 4 or 5.
4 or 5 times. And how many years have you been here?
I just finished my 7th season.
All right, so going into your 8th season, where do you see this program going in the near future? In your opinion, what are some of your goals as a team?
Well, our goal from the second I got here, from my job interview, was to win the national championship. I think goals are important. I've read a book called Burn Your Goals, last year when I was going through And I understand the idea of focusing on the process, but I talk to my recruits all the time about having a vision. You know, like I tell the kids when they come here, if I blindfolded you and told me to meet you in the library, you'd end up in the business building, right? But you didn't have a blindfold on, you'd find the library, right? And that's exactly how all of our futures work, right? If you know what you want to be, like I knew as a freshman in college, I wanted to be a college lacrosse coach. I'm a college lacrosse coach. Like there are musicians who knew when they were 7 and they got their first guitar, I want to be a musician, and they're musicians today. Like goals is like where everything starts. And so we have a goal of winning the national championship. We don't talk about it a ton. We talk about what we need to do today to just be a little bit better. And so that's where our program is. We are better today than we were when, you know, in 2012 and 2013 and 2014. But this is the hard part, I think. I think when you're trying to build something and you can kind of take some risks, you know, I think it was easier to be the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles last year in the Super Bowl than to be the coach of the Patriots, because the Eagles weren't supposed to win. And so you can make some gutsy calls. And when you take over a program early on, you can do that in recruiting, you can do that with your culture, you can do that in overtime. But then when the expectations come, it becomes tougher to make some of those gutsy calls. And so that's the challenge that lies now, is to remain true to who we are and what got us here, to then take that final step. So I kid around with the team all the time. I have 3 sons, you know, and as long as I can stay in good graces with their mom, they'll come play here and they'll win us the national championship. And so the burden and the pressure is off of the current team, because I'm currently raising that group. You know, I can hit them if they don't get it done. So.